Welcome to the Weird Library. I am the librarian. It is a pleasure to meet you here. Many have attempted, but failed to visit through various means where you have merely stumbled. Indeed, the stars must be right, and the mists have waned. Do not let the strangeness of these walls concern you, nor the vast collection of its tomes. I have selected a particular tale in anticipation of your arrival. In order to introduce today's story, I need to tell you briefly about two fictional towns created by two amazing authors. Matthew M. Bartlett created the town of Leeds, Massachusetts, which is the epicenter for WXXT radio. Who else runs this broadcast than a long-dead coven of witches? Dark and strange things happen wherever the broadcast is heard. S.P. Miskowski created the town of Scalute, a rural town in Washington state. This town is as much a character in her stories as those who live within it. A tribute anthology was released in 2021 called Hymns of Abomination, Songs of Leeds, to celebrate the work of Matthew M. Bartlett. Today's story, by S.P. Miskowski, appears in that anthology. It tells the tale of a character from Scalute traveling across the country to Leeds. What sort of person would want to do this? Our traveler will discover who they are along the way. I Could Tell You So Much by S.P. Miskowski. Read by Bridgette Brenmark. You can drive a car hell-bent for leather from Scalute, Washington to Leeds, Massachusetts in 45 hours and 30 minutes via I-80 East and I-90 East. By bus or by train will take 4 days, 14 hours. You can go lone wolf and walk it in 976 hours via US 212 West, or ride a bicycle in 262 hours via US 12 East. This is public information. You can look it up. Of course, all the numbers are theoretical. They don't take into account the vagaries of the weather, current events, accidents, the idiosyncrasies of 20th century engineering, or the all-too-human craving for misadventure. I stop walking when I see "Lord have mercy" on a sign a man is holding over his head. He's standing on the sidewalk in front of the bus station with a jar of small bills and coins at his feet. The man's eyes are the color of nickels, dull silver with a sky blue undertone. He's not wearing a mask. Frothy spittle flies from his mouth whenever he speaks. He's slurring at every passerby. "Stranger, do you have a plan you can live with?" I stop walking, because I do. I have a plan. "How about you, sister?" the nickel-eyed man asks me. The crowd edges past. People are exiting the bus station in a hurry, and others are trying to get in. They all want to go somewhere else as fast as they can. Most are wearing paper or cloth masks, and they walk a wide circle around the nickel-eyed man. They don't look at him. They don't look at me while I'm talking to him. Like he's already tainted me. Like I'm already doomed in spite of my face shield. "I sure do," I tell him. My breath fogs up the inside of the plastic lampshade. "I sure as fuck have a plan." I've had a plan for a long time. I've been ready. I've been waiting for something like this to happen. We thought, after the temperature dropped and we had a week of rain, the fire season was over. Then came news of a warm spell, and here's what happened. People came out of the woodwork, eager for sunlight, shrieking with joy. They dragged their families and in-laws, their sheepish friends and spouses, to the heart of the darkest and most heavenly forest. There they burned candles, sang songs, danced in the moonlight. Some set off fireworks. Then they drove home, leaving campfires to smolder in their wake. When the new wave of wildfires rolled up one shoulder of the canyon, the whole sky lit up pink and gold, scarlet and orange. Then everything fell into darkness. Moments later, along the cliff edge, houses began to burst into flames. Window glass flying across brittle lawns, muffled voices indoors, people gagging and crying in the smoke. Some people made it as far as their driveway and collapsed. Dogs ran to the half-charred remains of their owners, stopped for one bewildered sniff, and took off down the road. They howled at the smoke, barked at every exploding gas tank. Like an afterthought, the fire swept back, rolling across the power lines. They sputtered, popped, and every wing of the hospital blacked out. The sudden dark silence caught nurses, aides, and interns off guard. The halls of the security wing were usually quiet anyway, but this was different. The quiet dropped hard, fell out of the sky and through the ceiling, final as a gunshot. We waited. Nobody moved. After a minute, a buzzing began in the corners of every room, underneath the beds and the back of every drawer and cabinet. First, it sounded like the whine of a bumblebee, its wing muscles ready for flight. Once the power died, it should have been a few minutes, no more, before the generator kicked in. We were all thinking this exact same thought, one mind humming, growling, and waiting. Staff must have been holding their breath, ducked down behind chairs, beds, curtains, fake potted plants. Minutes passed. Somebody tried a cell door and found it unlocked. Somebody finally let loose and started screaming, but not out of fear. This was a scream of victory and hunger. That tore it. Gustav, who was a dancer until he broke his leg, suffered a nervous breakdown, and then killed his landlady, rammed the exit with a fire extinguisher and split it down the middle. Next came a lot of running and shouting and shoving. A guy fell down and was trampled. The floor grew sticky with blood, the walls stained with it. I stumbled out of the security wing and recognized the red-headed clozapine nurse on the floor, limbs crooked in all directions, head upright against the baseboard, blood filling the gaps between her yellow teeth. I rummaged through the cart next to her, took what I needed, and pushed her aside on my way to the stairs. The supply closet was 1 story down. 2 naked men, twins who liked to be called Bert and Ivar, but are really named after martyred saints, headed straight for the freeway. They left the fire exit hanging open. Nearby, on a cement block, they posed an intern like a mannequin, with crossed legs and a smile slit all the way across his bearded face. Pretty soon, streams of patients, drugged, deranged, or quietly lost, headed after Bert and Ivar in the direction of stalled traffic. Drivers evacuating Kelso, Scalut, and Castle Rock, trapped in idling cars, honking their horns, trying not to cough or vomit from the smoke-clogged air. They shook their heads at all the scrawny people in threadbare gowns, some trailing IV tubes and wheeling oxygen tanks, emerging through the smoke to weave their way between cars, leaving gummy footprints and smears of phlegm on windows. Did the drivers panic and scream? Somebody should have screamed. That would be the normal thing, stuck in a car in a 1-mile line, surrounded by toxic smoke and lunatics. Somebody must have screamed. I have a plan. I didn't run into traffic like the other women from my ward, flashing middle-aged bush at terrified drivers. No, by the time I exited the hospital, I was wearing cherry pink scrubs, a lampshade face shield, and pull-on ankle boots. I was carrying 4 things: a stolen wallet, a fanny pack loaded with pills, a box cutter, and a postcard. Only the last item belonged to me. To my left, the parking lot was empty. To my right, 3 female patients had an intern pinned face down on the ground. One planted her full weight on his back, while another gripped a rolled-up magazine from the lobby, and the last one yanked his pants down, shredding the fabric. I kept walking, away from the freeway, headed toward fresh air. I kept walking. People like nurses. People let nurses go ahead of them in line, even now. People nod and say hello to nurses, and thank you. They say thank you for no reason at all. I'm never lonely. Dressed this way, I'll always have friends. The Lord have mercy man's silver nickel eyes are shut tight when he appears on the news channel, and his face is purple with veins popping out across his forehead. He's kicking a man on the sidewalk and yelling about the Redeemer. He wears brogues. Those blunt shoes have knocked the back of the other man's skull to smithereens. Brain fluid spurts onto the toe of one shoe, a fat, shiny glob. I've seen that happen before. Brain junk has an auto repair smell to it, a garage smell, like oil and rubber. The altercation started over the nickel-eyed man's God-given goddamn right to not wear a fucking mask. A man exiting the bus station said a Christian isn't a Christian who doesn't respect the greater good. The nickel-eyed man dropped his Lord have mercy sign, grabbed the man by the neck, flung him to the pavement, and started kicking. Oh my God, who do you think shot that awful video? Who in the world would just stand there, recording it all, and not lend a hand to help that poor Christian man? The passenger across the aisle asks. He won't mind his own business. Keeps the right amount of distance on the other side of the tape, but won't shut up. Mask dangling from one ear, which is against the rules of the bus line. Staring across at my iPad screen and reacting to every little thing with ticks and twitches, like he can see it all just fine. He notices me while I'm watching the news clip of the nickel-eyed man for a third time. The sweeps and pans and changes of focus are a lot like art, I think. The person who shot it should get some kind of award. Sputtering screen images flood the foreground. A slippery landscape outside the bus window blurs the background. The window glass is sweaty with condensation. The iPad I acquired from a distracted lady with 3 noisy children at a gift shop in Salt Lake City. Broke the password in no time, a nickname she called her littlest kid, the grumpy one with the poop-filled diaper, Dilbert. I shot it, I say to my fellow passenger. I was right there. I shot the whole shebang for the news report. Jesus, he says. That's an awful thing. You saw what happened and you taped it too? My God. I stop watching the news report. I do this every time. Stop at this point, 2 minutes and 6 seconds in, while the nickel-eyed man is kicking the man on the ground and shout preaching about the Redeemer. I stop playing the video right before it includes me, walking up to the nickel-eyed man, slicing the back of his neck with a box cutter, and stepping away. All with my back to the camera and whoever really shot the awful thing. The whoever was too stunned and too busy retching to follow me into the bus station, where I flung the box cutter away and heard it skitter over the tiled floor, underfoot of the heaving crowd. I honestly do not get what this world is coming to, says the passenger, and hooks his dangling mask into place. Then he closes his eyes, like he's praying, like he's shutting out all the filth and madness, like you would shut a door in the face of an annoying missionary or a stray dog. He doesn't want to receive the wrong message. He will do anything to keep out messages from people like me. I decide I'll follow him off the bus as soon as we reach Denver. I settle back into my seat and enjoy the scenery. We pass bars, shopping centers, closed schools, derelict office buildings, and restaurants surrounded by protesters with signs. My body, my rights. Government kills more than Clovid. Manly men don't mask. Hours later, in the rest stop bathroom, my nosy fellow passenger slides down the wall to the Lysol-scented floor, his cheap shoes squeaking in a puddle of soft gore. Why do they stare up like that? What do they expect? Every time, I swear. They stare up with amazement. I think they're stunned to discover a complete stranger hates them enough to make them shut up. A stranger with a trash bag over her cherry pink scrubs and plastic shopping bags over her ankle boots. No longer a stranger now. We're connected in such an intimate way, forever. I leave the discarded bags draped over him after tucking one into his big mouth. Apropos of fuck all, I've been engaged in a torrid love affair most of my adult life. I don't remember when it started, but every real person I've tried has failed to live up to my imagination, sometimes in small ways, sometimes by being a fucking jerk who had to be dealt with. You know what I mean. Electroshock isn't what you imagine when you hear the word. They don't do it the way you see it in old movies. This is modern and people take it seriously. You get these small, short pulse currents in your brain, makes you feel confused, like maybe you've wet your pants and forgot about it. Then you feel nice, like sinking into a warm pool with lotus flowers floating around you. Years ago, the treatment was different. The heat would spread quickly, all over, inside and out, in every muscle. You'd get all jammed up, like a fist, and you could feel it in your blood too, like being drunk when you plan to stop at 7 glasses of whiskey, and now all you can do is let it wear off. The scent of piss from your sweat glands. I used to say the words glands and glades over and over like a jingle. A girl in biology class told another girl that I didn't know the difference between glands and glades. She was found in her bed at home with one elbow stuck in her mouth. Her doctor claimed she had a spasm because he didn't see how a contortion of that kind was possible. What am I talking about? A broad-faced woman in leggings, cowboy boots, and layers of scarves is obsessed with the back of my head. I see her squinty face in the bus security mirror ahead of us. She keeps showing off, being a bitch when she thinks nobody can see what she's doing. I see what she's doing. I'm feeling much better since St. Louis, and 20 minutes of heavy sleep. Most people think they need hours of sleep every night, but all I need is 20 minutes, a couple of times a day. We were stuck for a while in traffic outside Denver. We were stuck again outside St. Louis, when a road crew was struck by a semi and bodies came running down on the asphalt, each landing with a meaty crunch. Woke up to the splash of windshield wipers. Rain again, washing the stains away. Our driver nods, knowing the route too well. He's bored. He'll keep driving this leg of the route until he's too old to grip the steering wheel, or the bus company goes out of business, or the road crumbles to dirt. What am I saying? None of this shit will last that long. All the drivers and passengers will be dead in less than a year. Most people just can't figure out what to do when the bad shit happens. They don't have a plan. I had money for my bus ticket, but I like to be practical. So I swiped Lord Have Mercy's money jar, which I grabbed 1 second after I sliced his neck. If you haven't cut anybody, the surprising thing is what comes out besides blood. A roll of crinkly, yellow fat came out of the nickel-eyed man's neck, but I didn't stop to admire it. I only had a chance to grab the cash and throw the jar away with the box cutter in the bus station. I could have driven a vehicle off a car lot during the wildfires. I could have kept walking and hitched rides once I cleared the first emergency area. That's funny. On the news, one town official after another declares this place or that place is in a state of emergency, like it's only this town or that city. Like there's a spot somewhere on the map you can get to and be safe if you drive far enough or run far enough. This trip is all I had dreamed of ever since the postcard was delivered to me by the night shift nurse. Wrinkled corners indicated a long journey through many careless hands. The picture was hard to make out until I held it up close. There seemed to be a pen of some kind, maybe a corral in the foreground, like at a county fair. To one side of the pen, a large goat reared back on its hind legs, raising its forehooves into the air. Nearby, a group of children sat in a circle on the grass, picking dandelions and tearing them apart. On the message side of the card were 2 things, a Leeds, Massachusetts postmark and a single hoofprint. I've had 4 different names. Only the first one is real. It's the only one that matters. My people come from a place across the ocean. Some sailed the Atlantic during bad times and settled in New England. My cousins never married or brought in fresh blood, so that line is pure as can be. Out west, we've turned lazy. I can see that now. We had time to spread out, marry whoever we wanted, and ignore the past. We've forgotten too much. But now it's time to find my way back to where I belong. I see what she's doing. The broad-faced woman in leggings, cowboy boots, and scarves is sneaking barbecue ribs. She got off the bus way back in Kansas City, and from the minute she came back and took her seat, she's been glancing around and grinning like a cat with two mice. Now she's ducking her head over a cardboard box in her lap. When she raises her face again, she's got black red sauce and charred bits of pig smeared around her lips. She drops out of sight again and reappears with thick sauce dripping from her snout. Pittsburgh is a hellhole. Snow is falling and it's the color of copper. The scheduled brief stop is canceled after protesters hurl cans and bottles at the bus, chanting, "No mask now! No mask ever!" And anti-protesters shout, "Mask now or die later!" Our driver's a woman with green hair. She wears an old-fashioned chauffeur hat with a shiny bill. She calls the protesters and anti-protesters little rebels. She speeds the bus toward a group of them until they jump out of the way. One man slips and falls in the snow. His sign gets caught on the back bumper, and the bus drags him for a quarter of a mile, face down on the asphalt. When he breaks loose and lies crumpled in the coppery snow, our driver chuckles and hits the gas. My body is streaming through the countryside, past long deserted factories and mills. The cold rushes all around me. I am dreaming. A voice cuts through the darkness. I can't understand what it says. A figure draped in rags emerges from a cloud of smoke. He is taller than the bus, and his arms wave woodenly at sharp angles. His head is that of an ancient, desiccated hog. He holds up the heads of two children, strands of hair stuck to their cheeks and graying tongues protruding from their mouths. I see the woman in leggings and cowboy boots clinging to the great hog's shoulder, suckling his sweat, nibbling at the damp hairs hanging from his armpits. We're somewhere north of Philly, and a teenager wearing a Rams t-shirt is gawking at the sights. Every market, every trash dumpster, every alley seems to take his breath away. He keeps twisting around in his window seat, trying to make eye contact with someone who will share his stammering excitement. The other passengers avoid him. I'm thinking about my last dream, the sheer crimson shadows and darkened curves of it. I can't recall what happened after the figure with the hog's head reached the bus. Traffic slows for the 800th time. I notice a cord hanging over the back of the empty seat ahead of me. I pull it down and examine it. Earbuds. They look brand new, so I put them on, plug into my iPad, and search for music. I'm scanning for some 1960s French pop when I hear a faint tinkling tune. Its simplicity is both beguiling and slightly irritating. I remove the earbuds, and the music goes away. I replace them, and the tune, the kind anyone can imitate, as basic as a TV jingle, grows louder. It's Turkey in the Straw, I think. I hate it, but somehow I can't stop listening. The notes are stuck in my memory, like a recurring nightmare. As this occurs to me, I turn my head to the right and see the teenager in the Rams t-shirt screaming and banging his fists on his window. A man stands up and motions for the teenager to take a seat. When the kid keeps screaming, the man shoves him down into his seat and goes striding up the aisle to alert the driver. She pays no attention to the man's grievances. The driver waits until he retreats to turn her face toward us, chauffeur hat still perched on her head. Although she maintains a tight grip on the steering wheel, she keeps turning in her seat until she's facing the passengers. Her eyes are round and runny. She's not wearing a mask. Her face is elongated, bristling with short hairs and ending in a large snout. She opens her mouth, and a snuffling sound comes out. I'm going to remove the earbuds. I'm going to throw them away. But now the tinkly tune is fading, and the voice of a man rises gradually to fill the void. All of the voids. The guy who made the teenager sit down is now throttling the kid, and no one tries to stop him. To my right, out the window, I see street signs and houses and dogs. I see a man with loose, sagging breasts standing naked on a corner. I see a parade float, but I can't make out the words printed on the banner. I could tell you so much. But I couldn't look at your face while I spoke, says the voice in my ears. Yes, I could tell you where you've been. I could tell you where you're going. I could tell you when the vehicle you rely upon for safe passage will skid sideways into a truck filled with lifelike baby dolls, the kind a lonely, childless woman holds against one breast and sinks to sleep at night, spied on by an elderly man with an erection who stands on a stepladder outside the bedroom window. I could tell you when you will die, and how, but not why. I could tell you all the secrets in your dying heart. I could tell you what the world comes to, but I won't. I can't say it happens exactly when the man shoves the teenager to the floor and begins to stomp on his head, but this might be the moment when I know for sure. I'm on my way home. It has been wonderful having you visit, but time is fleeting. The universe has begun to shift away from our convergence, for now. S.P. Miskowski has received 2 National Endowment for the Arts fellowships. Her second novel, I Wish I Was Like You, was named This Is Horror Novel of the Year, received a Charles Dexter Award from Strange Aeons, and was a finalist for a Bram Stoker Award. 4 of her books have been nominated for a Shirley Jackson Award. Her stories have been published in Supernatural Tales, Black Static, Identity Theory, and Eyedolon, and in numerous anthologies, including The Best Horror of the Year, Volume 10, There Is No Death, There Are No Dead, and Darker Companions, celebrating 50 years of Ramsey Campbell. You can find out more at her site, spmiskowski.wordpress.com. Our creator of Leeds, Massachusetts, Matthew M. Bartlett, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He lives in western Massachusetts with his wife Katie and an unknown number of cats. His work can be found on Amazon and other popular online sites for books and merchandise. You can also sign up for his monthly chapbook, the WXXT Program Guide, on his website, wxxt-gare-occult.square.site. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please like and review. It really does help our show. To learn more about the Weird Library, you can check us out at weirdlibrary.com. All proceeds from the merch goes towards helping us produce this podcast. You can also join the Weird Library Facebook group for updates and to join our community. Thanks for listening.